A very good evening and a warm welcome to State of Business, RTV's primetime business news bulletin. I'm Indivari Amwat. Here's a look at tonight's headlines first. Sri Lanka says prevailing environment in the region not conducive for Islamabad SAARC summit. And Finance Minister says corruption issues and revenue leakages being addressed. A look at your stories in detail now. Issuing a statement, Foreign Affairs Ministry says that Sri Lanka regrets the prevailing environment in the region is not conducive for holding the 19th SAARC summit in Islamabad on the 9th and 10th of November this year. The statement added that the general provisions of the SAARC Charter require that decisions at all levels shall be taken on the basis of unanimity, and this applies to the convening of meetings of heads of state or government of SAARC member states as well. The Foreign Affairs Ministry said that peace and security are essential elements for the success of meaningful regional cooperation for the benefit of the people of South Asia. It added, quote, as a founding member of the SAARC committed to regional cooperation, Sri Lanka hopes that the steps required to ensure our region's peace and security will be taken to create an environment that is conducive for the pursuit of regional cooperation, unquote. Finance Minister Ravi Karunanaka says the government revenues are steadily rising as a result of authorities being able to curb corruption and revenue leakages. However, the minister pointed out that when somebody fights against corruption, people tend to look at them in a suspicious manner. The Finance Minister expressed these views speaking at the CEO Forum organized by Art Television in Colombo today. The Finance Minister delivered his speech under the title Winning Economic Challenges. He emphasized that the situation of the country's economy is improving with rising government revenue. The minister said that in a span of less than 2 years, the government has been able to curb revenue leakages in a number of areas. He noted that it was one of the reasons that the government revenue rose to 13.5% of GDP from 10.4% of GDP, which was the figure 20 months ago.
You look at excise as a classic example. When we took office, we had a revenue of 2 billion a month. Now we have 12.5 billion a month. The projection then was 22 billion. Now we are collecting 145 billion. We look at 200 billion for 2017. Customs was having 385 billion when we took office. Today it is posting almost 820 billion. So these are the areas that you had presidential directives that basically had a container which had to pay 10 million going out without paying a single cent. But now things have changed and we look forward to your cooperation. Ensure that you pay the legitimate dues to the government rather than under the table to anybody. That is the clean society that we want to do. Because a bribe to be given, somebody has to take. So if you want to have expeditious clearances, you don't need to use any of those mechanisms to clear. You have a problem, you contact us and we'll ensure that the customs ensure goes on without any hassle.
The minister also highlighted the challenges faced by government when tackling corruption.
The biggest problem that we face as a clean government is trying to stop corruption. That the guys who are trying to stop the corruption is deemed as a corrupt guy. There are 3 people here who face the problems with certain government institutions that were there. They came to speak and saw how quickly it can get resolved. The perception was that whether part of us also was part of the corruption thing. But when you come and get that cleaned up, you find that the biggest curse in trying to reduce the corruption in this country is the person who tried to stop that corruption. If you're part of the process, no problem.
Speaking further, the minister said that authorities would like to see interest rates come down further in order to create a much more balance in the economy. He said that Sri Lanka's biggest problem is continuous shrinking of exports. Export revenue was 24% of GDP 15 years ago, and today it has come down to about 12.2%, the minister said.
That is certainly something desirable and we'll be heading to. You could see in the last couple of weeks, it came down from 11.8% to about 10% on the treasury bonds. And we'll certainly look at making it in competitive range. On the other side, keeping the rupee in this present position is required because every rupee devaluation has a 23 billion impact on the economy. So keeping both these ends, keeping the interest rate stable and keeping the rupee in a fair manner is 2 difficult things. Both of them, the monetary and fiscal policies, are basically being imposed to ensure that we have a lower interest rate and also keep the rupee stable, make Sri Lanka a competitive export base. The biggest problem, exports are shrinking, which was 24% of GDP 15 years ago, today is down to about 12.2%. And that is a significant reduction, which is just ill-affordable.
The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka has requested the Ceylon Electricity Board to submit the implementation plan for power plants. In a statement, PUCSR said that the plan should include milestones for each of the power plants identified in the plant schedule for the period of 2017 to 2020 of the recently approved least cost long-term generation expansion plan of 2015 to 2034. The Commission said that the implementation plan should be submitted to the Commission on or before the 28th of October 2016. The Commission approved the least cost long-term generation expansion plan 2015 to 2034 on the 15th of September 2016. The Commission emphasized that the power plants listed in the least cost long-term generation expansion plan for the period of 2017 to 2020 should be immediately constructed and operated to prevent the possible power shortage in year 2018 and beyond. These plants include 2 thermal power plants with a capacity of 170 megawatts in southern region, 105 megawatt gas turbines, 300 megawatt natural gas power plants, and several renewable energy power plants with a capacity of 655 megawatts, which include 3 major hydropower plants. Accordingly, about 1,230 megawatts would be added to the national grid during the next 4 years. And with that, we take a short break. We'll be back with more on State of Business on the other side. Welcome back. Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, says that Sri Lanka's potential to provide financial services to the region would be well capitalized if the country focuses on producing qualified professionals to meet the demand. The Deputy Governor was speaking at the launch of a UK-based banking and finance degree in Sri Lanka recently.
UK's Northumbria University and its award-winning business school introduced a banking and finance degree in Sri Lanka. The BSc Honours degree will be offered in partnership with BMS Sri Lanka. Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe spoke on the opportunities ahead for Sri Lanka as an international financial centre.
Some of the industries, when they are basically booming, then we can't find qualified professionals or skilled professionals for those. For example, now tourism, all of a sudden after the end of the tourism industry boom. And then now they are finding difficult to have qualified hospitality professionals. Sufficient numbers, and all construction industry and a lot of some industries, because that was not predicted, and then there was no proper supply of professionals for those industries, and this is where this is very important. Bank and financial services, where the one is that we are going to have access to large financial markets in terms of in our trade negotiations, and second, the Sri Lanka is going to be developed as a regional financial center, and government has already announced this is going to be Colombo International Financial Center, where a lot of financial services, we expect that those institutions will come here and the established businesses here to provide financial services to the region. So if you look at those 2 areas, in addition to the domestic market, we are going to have potential, the big regional market, and also access to the large 2 markets, preferential access to Singapore, China, and also perhaps India.
We have more news in brief now. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe arrived in New Zealand today on an official visit. During the visit, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will meet Prime Minister of New Zealand, John Key. This will be the first occasion on which a Sri Lankan Prime Minister would hold bilateral discussions in New Zealand. A group of prelates from different Buddhist chapters say amendments to the Buddhist Temporalities Ordinance are done disregarding common consensus reached earlier. They urge authorities not to go ahead with the amendments without due consensus. The National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol inaugurated Voice of Blue Pea, a support group of oral cancer survivors. This is an initiative of the National Cancer Control Program together with the Apeksha Hospital in Maharagama and National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol. Winsetha Hospital launched its website recently. Earlier, the hospital expanded its services to have a cosmetics clinic where a range of cosmetic interventions are performed by consultants who specialize in specific areas. Mixed development project Cinnamon Life announced the launch of The Swits, the second residential tower to be constructed as part of a 4.5 million square foot integrated resort by Waterfront Properties. Pre-bookings for The Swits at Cinnamon Life have exceeded 15% at the time of the launch. Meanwhile, over 50% of the floor space of the first residential tower, The Residence at Cinnamon Life, has already been sold. With an estimated total cost of $850 million, the Cinnamon Life project represents the single largest private sector-led investment in Sri Lanka to date. We'll be back with Stock Watch after this break. Welcome back. The Colombo Bourse ended in a mixed territory today. The ACPI edged up due to price gains in counters such as John Keys Holdings, Asian Hotels and Properties and Commercial Bank. The S&P SL20 index closed in red for the day. High net worth and institutional investor participation was witnessed in distilleries, LB Finance, Axis Engineering and Royal Ceramics. Mixed interest was observed in the People's Leasing and Finance and TJ Lanka, whilst retail interest was noted in Ceylon Grain Elevators, Citrus Leisure and Kalpitia Beach Resort. Turnover crossed 1.3 billion rupees. Beverage, food and tobacco sector was the top contributor to market turnover due to distilleries. Banks, finance and insurance sector was the second highest contributor to market turnover due to LB Finance and the People's Leasing and Finance, whilst the sector index closed flat. Meanwhile, foreigners remained active, closing as net buyers. We now take a look at the day's foreign currency rates. And now we take a look at the dealing room update for the week.
The Sri Lankan rupee ended weaker on Thursday, posting its fourth straight session of losses as the dollar demand from importers exceeded mild greenback sales by exporters and low inward remittances as well. The spot rupee ended at 146.90 to 147 per dollar, compared with Wednesday's close of 146.62 to 146.70. The forward premiums also increased across the board this week. The 1 month premium was hovering at around 90 to 100, while the 1 year premium was hovering around 920 to 950 levels. On the international markets, the Japanese yen looks set to log its third straight quarter of gains on Friday. The yen traded at 101.20 yen to the dollar. The yen, often seen as a safe haven currency, rebounded as global share prices slipped on worries about Deutsche Bank under pressure from a massive fine. The United States demands over its sales of mortgage-backed securities. At the weekly Treasury bill auction held this week, the weighted average rates of all the tenors dropped significantly. Accordingly, the 3 month bill dropped 16 basis points to 8.55%, while 6 month bill dropped 30 basis points to 9.39%. The 1 year rate dropped 27 basis points to 10.11%. The overnight core money and repo rates were stable this week. The core money rates traded at around 8.40 to 8.45%, while the overnight repo rates traded at around 8.45 to 8.50 levels this morning. The liquidity in the market was at a deficit of around 23 billion rupees on Thursday. The treasury bond rates in the secondary market dropped this week due to increased demand from investors. The 10-year bond maturing on the 1st of August 2026 was trading at around 11.12 to 11.20% this morning.
That's all the news from State of Business for tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow, same time. Good night.